Welcome to Coder Catch Up. My name is Jamie Jones, and I didn't plan on vlogging today simply because I didn't really have too much I wanted to talk about. I got some stuff planned for the vlog, but yeah, nothing really today. But I was reading through Twitter and I come across a ton of tweets in regards to S3 being down, and it was kind of a big deal. When this comes out, hopefully the issue is resolved, but as I'm recording this, S3 is still down. And it's a pretty big issue because it affects a vast majority of websites and web applications that you use on a day-to-day basis, and it's really affecting quite a lot of things. It's pretty massive. So what I want to talk about is a couple things in regards to what's going on and just general thoughts on it. So the first one is this can happen to anyone. So I see a lot of people complaining and stuff, and a lot of people can also get kind of complacent about it. Like, they're a big company, this stuff won't happen. And, you've got to expect that these things will happen. It doesn't matter how small or how big the organization is or what kind of technical ability the company has, these things can still happen. So it's important that you look at mitigating these issues or putting things in place to be able to mitigate when the time comes. And that comes up to my next point, is mitigation. So there's a couple ways that you can kind of fix or stop these issues from happening, at least you as an end user of said service. So whether it be S3 or some other service. Of course, your mileage may vary depending on what is happening and what you put in place. But the two kind of courses of action that you can take, the straight up black and white, is one, not do anything. Now you might be thinking that's horrible, but in some circumstances it might be better for your application or your service or yourself to not actually do anything about the issue and just let it resolve itself and not worry about handling anything. Now that's quite, I think, an education. And most services should be making sure they handle these things well. But yeah, that still is one option. But the main option, which for a majority of people, is actually handling that issue and how you mitigate it. So one of the things that I find that happens quite often, I'm guilty of doing this at times as well, is actually not putting in place measures in your code to handle if there's an error or an issue with the service connecting with it. For example, we normally handle errors such as like, oh, there was a permission issue or something like that, a timeout. But when some service is completely down, then generally we don't handle those errors very well. And what happens is we get a very harsh error back to the user, or even the application not responding or working at all. So taking the simple approach, because if your whole application is, say, living on Amazon, which potentially is affected, actually bringing entire websites down, because Amazon services are backed a lot by S3. There's a lot of stuff that gets connected through S3. But let's just say it's just service. So most commonly it's file uploads, or file uploads and reading. So reading and writing assets. You need to put in place measures where if that service is unavailable, that you handle that error and make sure that it doesn't bring your application down. Now this all depends on how your application is built, what language you're in, stuff like that. So you'll need to sort out whatever's going to work best for you in your language and framework of choice. The next step is actually, once you've handled that error and it's not bringing down the service and you can still use the application to a certain extent, is that you then actually provide a useful error to your users. So it's great that you capture the error, you make sure nothing happens, that the application can respond still, but then informing the user is really important as well, simply because they don't know S3 is down, they don't know why this thing isn't uploading. So making sure that you've got things in place that gives the user a good understanding. If you are finding that this is going to be a long-running issue, that you actually notify your users in any way possible to let them know that there is an issue going on, that you're trying to resolve it, but it's generally with another provider and there's not too much you can do. The other option is, if there is an error, you can actually provide a fallback. Now this is more of a cost-related mitigation method, is essentially having a duplicate in some other area. Now I believe the S3 issue, now don't quote me on this, but it's just with US East 1, it's not with any other section. So I'm really not too sure what other regions it might be affecting, but you could mitigate off to another region, which generally you should be doing. Keeping things co-located in two different areas or something like that is generally a good idea for redundancy and backing up. But also maybe having it on a separate service altogether is another really important one. One of these issues that you might have seen in the past was DNS providers going down, like DN Simple, and basically making sure you have in place a second set of name servers where your domain can sit and have all its host records just in case something goes down with the primary provider, and having that fallback is really important. So the same thing can be done with other services, in particular with S3. So you could have some other storage service set up in place that it replicates and moves over. Now that takes a lot of effort in terms of programming and technical maintenance and stuff like that. So those things you really do have to consider and weigh up to see what is better for you. Like, do you need to display those assets? Is that small? Or, day of downtime or something like that, is that suitable? So you need to evaluate that. Now the last thing I want to talk about is what you do if there's nothing you can really do during this downtime. Like, can you do your normal job? Can you get on with what you need to do? That's really important questions. Like, so what do you do? Do you refactor code? Do you take the time to maybe do some meetings? Do you take the time to just catch up on some reading, or look at learning a new skill or something like that? That's all I really wanted to talk about. And these are kind of important questions to ask yourself and evaluate as a company or an individual. But I'd really love to know what your thoughts are on this situation. What are you doing in regards to mitigating these issues? How have you felt that they've handled it? I'd really love to know. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Also, if you're liking these videos, please give it a like. I really appreciate it. And it's kind of nice just to see some likes coming up. Also, if you want to make sure you get notified about these, make sure you subscribe and click on the little bell icon and make sure that the notifications are ticked. And also, if you haven't checked out the podcast too, so I'm up to, I think now 102 podcasts should be coming out soon. Episode 101 recently just came out. I think it was yesterday. And yeah, so check that out too. If you haven't checked it out, you can find that at codercatchup.com or in iTunes. But other than that, we'll catch you in the next video.